take their seats. We're going to get started very shortly. While people are sitting, we're going to take care of some of the preliminary matters. The way we're going to conduct this evening is after the Girl Scouts lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I will read the motion of the FinCom. There'll be a presentation from the school committee and the school department that'll be led by Emily Parks and Mayor Plotkin. There'll be a recorded presentation by Pam Dukeman, and she'll introduce that. I'm told there's a formal opposition to the article, and the people in opposition have asked that one of their members, Ken Mackin, be allowed to make a rebuttal, so he's going to be the first speaker. When we speak, there are two microphones right here in the center aisle. If you wish to speak on the article, come up to the microphone and we'll call each one, the first, then the back one, until everybody's had a chance to speak. This article has generated a lot of interest. Probably going to have some heated discussion. We could use the heat this evening. But I'm going to ask people to behave themselves. It's my job to maintain decorum. You may not agree with what everyone says, but I do ask that at least you consider their perspective and where they're coming from. We'll go over the rules in a little bit, but I do ask that there be no cheering or booing or clapping or hissing. That's very intimidating, and I'm not going to allow it to happen. If I feel someone's getting beyond the article, I'm going to use the gavel. You hear the gavel, that means you should stop speaking until we resolve the issue. It's a very complicated article. It's been reviewed by the Massachusetts State Building Authority. It's been reviewed by Bond Counsel because we have a Proposition 2.5 override. And I'm going to take a very hard look at any attempt to amend the article or the motion. Because if we don't do it properly, we're going to have to do this meeting all over again. And so we're not going to allow it. No one has come up to me with a motion to amend, and I don't expect that to happen. So first, we're going to have Dottie Powers explain how these electronic devices work.
Good evening. Okay, I'm just going to go through a brief overview on how you're going to be using your response keypad. Everybody, all registered voters should have received one upon check-in. Each registered voter, you've received your Easy Vote keypad. These keypads use reliable radio frequency and are secure. You will be asked to respond to Warrant Article 1 by casting your yes or no vote. And as you see on your keypad, yes is in green, number 1, and 2 in red is no. Please don't take the keypad with you when you leave. It doesn't work outside of this venue and has a high replacement cost. When you exit this evening, please return the keypads to a staff member that will be located at each exit. When you use the keypad, again, you will respond. 1A is yes, the green button. 2B is no, the red button. Your vote will be sent automatically once you submit it. You'll also see in the corner, so if you all want to take a look at your keypad, you'll see once you hit either yes or no, once your vote is taken, it will say okay. And you can change your vote until we close the vote. You may respond whenever the question is displayed, even before the countdown starts. You can correct your previous votes as long as the polling is open, and only your last vote counts when we close the vote. So now what we're going to do is have a little bit of fun. We're going to do a little test. And if you all take a look at your keypads, we have a question here. Do we have a quorum of 175 voters? So using your keypad, I want you to press 1A, which is the green button for yes if you think there's a quorum, and 2B, the red button for no if you don't think there's a quorum. And I will let you know when the voting is closed. And also, so that you know, just a reminder again, okay will show in the corner, upper left-hand corner, once you've done your vote. Yep, so your vote is open. And when 30 seconds goes by, I will let you know when the vote will be closed. Everybody having fun? Okay, I think we're ready, and let's look at the answer on the screen. So 534 people thought we had a quorum, and 31 don't think we had a quorum, really? What's our quorum? Okay, so we're done with that one, so now we're going to do another one. This is a real tricky one. Is the little drummer boy from the Battle of Bunker Hill buried in Westwood? Again, get out your keypad. You're going to vote for yes, the green button, 1A, and no, the red button, 2B. So I'm going to open the voting now. Didn't. Countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closed. Okay, so 351 people think the drummer boy is buried in Westwood, and 205 don't. So what is the answer? Yes, in the old Westwood Cemetery, down in the front. Everybody feel comfortable using these? Okay, great. Okay, so now I'm going to hand this back over to our moderator, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Dottie. And now I'm going to invite the Westwood Brownies, Cadets, and Girl Scouts to come up to the first microphone and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And all of those of you who can stand, I'd ask you to do that as well. The flag is over here to my right. Representing the Girl Scouts, we have Abigail Bent, Anaya Chowdhury, Fiona Donahue, Mari Kitayama, Carolyn James, Maddie Mastropalo, Enid Ramales, Muriel Ramales, and Avery Tessier. Are you ready, girls? States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, girls. Great job, great job. At this point, I'll introduce our Select Board Chair, Mike Walsh, to make a presentation on behalf of the Select Board.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Michael Walsh, and I am the Select Board Chair this year. Two other Select Board members are here, Mr. John Hickey and Mr. Rob Gotti. On behalf of the Select Board, we'd like to thank you all for joining us. It's an important evening. I always wanted to be on the big screen. Hasn't happened yet, but we'll see. Remember, when you do come up, ladies and gentlemen, for your comments, you will be on the big screen. So, yes, we want to let you know. There you go. It's not exactly the way I dreamed it, but that's it. There it is. So I did have a longer speech, but it is cold, and I don't want to keep you here any longer. But if you would like to volunteer at any point in time, we can always use your expertise in town government. Please reach out to the Select Board office. We're always looking for individuals to serve on our committees. I went to my daughter's graduation this year, and I want to just remind you of the one thing that I did take home from that graduation in the speech. Argue like you're right, but please listen like you're wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And now it's time for the school committee presentation.
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for attending today's meeting as we discuss this really important project. I'm Emily Parks, Superintendent of Schools. I'm joined this evening by May Plotkin, the chair of the Westwood School Committee. This fall, I began my 27th year working in the Westwood Public Schools. I have attended many Westwood town meetings, but this is the first time that I have had the honor of addressing this body. As superintendent, one of the things that I most frequently hear from residents is that they move to Westwood for the schools. Those comments always remind me how fortunate I am to lead in a district where the community values education, supports educators' work, and invests in its schools. I so appreciate this community. With the challenges of the pandemic last year in particular, would not have been possible without tremendous support from the community. The community's consistent investment in its schools over time helped to create a district that could weather turbulent times and still provide a high-quality education for children. With everyone pulling together last year and supporting each other, parents, students, educators, and community members, we were able to ensure that students learned even in an unprecedented context. Though we will be working through the many impacts of the pandemic for years to come, our students did well. The Boston Globe headline, MCAS scores plummet during the pandemic, does not capture the reality of what happened here in Westwood. In fact, on last spring's MCAS exam, Westwood's grade 3 to 8 scores in aggregate ranked 7th in all of Massachusetts for ELA, and 15th in Massachusetts for math. Grade 5, science, technology, engineering, and math scores ranked 6th in the state. Within the last 10 years, both Westwood High School and Downey Elementary School were named National Blue Ribbon Schools by the U.S. Department of Education. And just last week, U.S. News & World Report ranked Westwood's Martha Jones Elementary School the #1 elementary school in all of Massachusetts. Our students' achievements, not only in the classroom, but as artists, musicians, athletes, and community members, are the very best evidence of the impact of the work of the district. And we're proud that with the community's support, the district is able year after year to deliver on that investment. The community's engagement around this proposed building project over the last 3 years, through 75 open public meetings, 14 community forums, and many meetings with boards, commissions, and community groups, has clearly illustrated residents' continued support as folks have worked to understand our current needs, to make responsible decisions, and exercise a sense of stewardship to support our students today and into the future. And I thank you for your engagement in this long project. proposed project is for a consolidation of the Hanlon and Deerfield schools at the current Hanlon school location. The building is designed to accommodate up to 560 students. It's been designed to support the educational programs in Westwood and to facilitate 21st century instruction. In addition, the school building committee has incorporated into the proposed project the features that residents identified as priorities for the project, including an 11v11 multi-purpose playing field, a Little League baseball diamond, a gymnasium large enough for high school regulation play, or for simultaneous play on 2 middle school-sized cross courts, additional performance space for students and community groups, retained access to the walking trails in the Lowell Woods throughout the project, and a traffic mitigation plan. It will be a school for the community, serving as the summer headquarters for the district's extended school year classes, summer enrichment, and recreation programming for children across Westwood. In 2015, the school committee commissioned a master planning capital needs study that identified 3 elementary schools in need of modernization in terms of both educational space deficiencies and significant infrastructure needs due to aging systems. The 2 schools on tonight's agenda, Hanlon and Deerfield, were both built in the 1950s. Despite the district's effective maintenance efforts, both buildings have significant challenges in areas such as heating and cooling, plumbing, and electrical systems, which after nearly 70 years are nearing the end of their useful life. These buildings are not ADA compliant and accessible, and therefore do not adequately serve the wide range of student needs in an inclusive school environment. The educational spaces, with undersized classrooms, a lack of dedicated art and music space, insufficient libraries, and schools built prior to the concept of special education, do not match the realities of today's learning. Understanding these needs, in April 2017, Westwood submitted a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, also referred to as the MSBA. It was submitted for Hanlon to see if the state would be willing to provide partial funding for a project to address our needs. Getting into the state's program is competitive, and we were very fortunate to be one of 15 communities out of 82 applicants who were accepted into the program that year on our first try. After our acceptance, we met with the MSBA to ask if they would expand their investment in Westwood to a project that enabled us to address issues in more than one school. With that commitment from the MSBA, at town meeting in spring 2018, residents funded a feasibility study to look at options. Last April, the MSBA voted to grant Westwood a reimbursement grant of up to $18.2 million for the Hanlon Deerfield project that is proposed this evening, if the project is approved by residents tonight and at next week's town election. The feasibility study included a thorough and transparent community process. As a result of substantial community engagement, the proposed project, I believe, reflects the priorities that the community identified. Residents were initially presented with 15 potential project options, including new construction, additions and renovations, or base repair. The options included a Hanlon-Deerfield consolidation, as well as the possibility of a Hanlon-Sheehan consolidation, and looked at both the current Hanlon site and the current Sheehan site. Using evaluation criteria that was developed with community input and vetted at community forums, the school building committee shortlisted the original 15 options to 7, and finally to the project that is recommended tonight. That project is for new construction for a consolidation of Hanlon and Deerfield at the current Hanlon site for a design enrollment of a maximum of 560 students. Though the school will be below this enrollment capacity when it opens, this number was determined through multiple enrollment projection studies, which indicated a need to plan for enrollment growth at the elementary level. A similar approach was taken when the current high school was designed, and I'm happy to report that the enrollment projections for that project were spot on. The high school was able to accommodate an enrollment cycle that peaked around 1,000 students 2 years ago, just as projected. In addition, During the feasibility study, we talked a lot about what the right size is for an elementary school. As the superintendent, I more than anyone know the value of small neighborhood schools. But there is such a thing educationally as a school that is too small. Hanlon and Deerfield currently have about 180 students each. I need to emphasize that schools that size are very unusual in Massachusetts for lots of reasons. By contrast, for example, all of the elementary schools in neighboring towns, such as Needham, Dover, and Medfield, are at least twice as big, with some as large as 650, and they are still considered small elementary schools. This school has been specifically designed to retain the advantages of a small school by clustering classrooms in grade-level neighborhoods. The building includes adequate space for small group work, as well as services such as speech, counseling, occupational therapy, and PT, and specifically designed space for multiple district-wide special education programs so that we can meet the needs of almost all of our students in district. Importantly, this strategy reflects our vision of an inclusive environment where special education students are educated in their hometown. It also reflects our belief that we can provide high-quality, cost-effective in-district programs instead of relying on costly out-of-district placements, where an average private day placement for one student is about $125,000 for tuition and transportation annually. The building design includes modern-day security features and a deliberate separation between the academic wings and the public space that will be used after hours by the community. The design aesthetic took inspiration from the building's natural surroundings, with the materials and color palette reflecting the woods. This rendering shows the approach to the main entrance. This image, again, shows the main entrance with the academic wings on the left, the main office area in the center, and the gym on the right. The interior uses natural light and a warm palette to create an inviting place to learn. This is the cafeteria, which incorporates a performance space. The other side of the stage is adjacent to the music classrooms. This is a view of the gym. This is a typical classroom designed to flexibly accommodate today's instructional strategies. And this is a view of the accessible playground, with play structures, swings, an area for hardscape games, a half basketball court, and a grassy area for running and kicking the ball around. And finally, here is a view of the school from Gay Street. Now I will turn it over to Maya.
Thank you, Emily. So we're really excited about this project because it accommodates modern educational needs for both the general education population and the special education population, as well as being beautiful and inviting. But throughout this entire process, the school building committee has been very focused on cost. We've heard from some residents that this school looks fancy or has too many bells and whistles. And when you compare this to the Hanlon school, that's true. But this is what a modern elementary school looks like. This is what other towns are building as 21st century schools. Can I get back to the presentation? I'm not. Oh, there we go. Okay. Having said that, yeah, I know. Thanks. It disappeared. Having said that, to make sure we kept this project fiscally responsible, we tracked 4 other building projects going on at the same time. We chose these projects because they're all elementary schools, they are all MSBA projects, they're all substantially in the same timeline as ours, and they're all local to us. The schools were in Medfield, Ashland, Wellesley, and Westboro. Now, when we looked at these schools, you can't look at the total cost of these schools because each of these schools are different sizes, they're different student enrollments, they have different educational programs. So what we did is we took the total cost of each school, divided it by the total square foot, and we got a cost per square foot amount. This is similar when you're shopping for your home. This is another metric that real estate brokers will use. So when you look at that metric, you'll see that our school at $621 per square foot is substantially lower than any of these other 4 projects, which range from $650 per square foot all the way up to almost $700 per square foot. So we're proud of this slide in particular because we know that we've created a project that's both beautiful in design and also fiscally responsible. And at the same time, we're still able to incorporate a number of sustainability features into this project. This building will be net zero ready. It will be tracking LEED Silver. It will be fossil fuel free. It will have a PV panel ready roof, ready to accept solar panels. It will have a geothermal heating and cooling system. It has a highly efficient building envelope, so the insulation of the building. It will have a low energy use intensity, the metric that they measure efficiency, so low that we're hoping when it opens it will be one of the lowest in the state. And finally, it will have native plantings in the landscape design. So how much does this project cost? The total project cost is $87.8 million. The MSBA has committed up to $18.2 million in its reimbursement grant, so the total cost to us as residents is $69.6 million. And what does that mean to the taxpayer? Pam Dukeman, the town financial director, will talk more specifically about the finances after this presentation. But at a high level, this project will be financed by a 30-year bond with level debt service payments. That means that the payments are equally spread out along the 30 years so that current families and future families equally share the burden of the school. Using 2% as an interest rate, which Pam has told us, given the current bond market and the town's strong bond rating, is a reasonable interest rate estimate, you can see that the annual cost per $100,000 of home value for this project is $55. To put that in context, the average home in Westwood now costs $837,300. So for that average homeowner, this project will cost $462 per year in increased taxes, or about $38 per month. I want to mention that this tax increase is set over the life of the bond. So even if the assessed value of that particular homeowner increases, this $462 amount remains the same, whether it's year 1 or year 25. As we've discussed, and the reason we're here today, this project will require a debt exclusion by the town to authorize. And we wanted to give you an overview of the last few times the school has gone before the town to ask for funds over Proposition 2.5. So from this slide, I want to make 2 points. The first is that the schools have not asked residents for any money above Proposition 2.5 for anything in 13 years. This is fairly unusual for a municipality. A lot of school districts are back in front of their towns every 4 to 5 years asking for operational overrides. Second, the schools have not asked residents for any funds above Proposition 2.5 for a capital project in almost 20 years. And so the schools haven't come before this body in so long because we've been operating effectively and efficiently. But at some point, maintaining old and outdated schools becomes inefficient, both financially and operationally, and that's why we are here today. I want to stress that there is no do-nothing option. This Hanlon Deerfield project is the district's solution to deal with these aging schools. Again, we're solving for 2 schools with 1 project. But if this project doesn't go forward, a few things will happen. First, we will lose the $18.2 million in state money. These funds are for this project only. They can't be used on another project or at a later date. Second, we will still need to address the issues in these buildings. As you can see, just to do a base repair of these buildings, which means we're bringing them into compliance with local codes because they're not in compliance now, and upgrading the mechanical systems will cost a combined $41.7 million. The buildings themselves are assessed at $10.4 million, so basically you'd be putting $41 million into buildings worth 10. In addition, even with that money, we won't have solved most of the issues with these schools that Emily mentioned earlier, such as the too small schools, the too small classrooms, the inadequate space for special education and support programs. We will not have any of the new benefits that the new school brings, like the additional recreation space, the new performance space, the new fields. And finally, the current schools we know cannot accommodate expected future growth that we anticipate over the next 10 years, so we'll have to put on some kind of addition or renovation on these schools. A few people have asked us, why can't we just repair the schools as we go along without the need for an override? The school's capital budget per year for all 7 schools is $1 million. Even if we spent a portion of that budget each year on repairs, we still would not be able to keep up with the repairs that would be required at Hanlon and Deerfield. In addition, if we're spending a fair amount of money on fixing up the older schools, that clearly means we would have less money to maintain and update the other schools. So this is where we are in the project. It's October 2021. We're at town meeting. If it passes, it still needs to also pass at the ballot box. There's a special election next Tuesday, October 26th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If the project passes there, we move immediately into bid documents and onboard a contractor. We break ground July 2022, which is next summer, with the goal of completing the new building and moving teachers and students in February 2024. We would then demolish the existing Hanlon school, build out the new fields, and fully complete this project in August of 2024. So I'm leaving you here with a final image of this new school. This is the view of the north entrance from Gay Street. I'd also like to say that as excited as we are for this project, the school committee and the school district is aware that Sheehan is still in need of modernization. We also know that there's other municipal projects that are being considered after this one. Ultimately, we as residents will determine the timeline and the priorities for these next projects. But today, with this project, we have the unique opportunity to solve for 2 schools with 1 project and with significant state funds. And with a cost per square foot well below the cost of other local projects, we feel this project is a fiscally responsible solution to 2 aging schools and well worth the investment. From the start, this project has been a community process. We've had amazing engagement from Westwood residents, and we feel this project faithfully reflects all of the feedback we've received for the past 3 years. As Emily said, we thank you for your participation in this process, and we hope you see the value of this school, not just as an investment in Westwood's commitment to schools, but also to our entire community for this generation and for generations to come. Thank you.
And while Pam Dukeman comes up to present her pre-recording, I just want to acknowledge that our Congressman Stephen Lynch is here this evening. Thank you for coming. We've got a lot of assistance from the federal government since COVID, and that's been very helpful. And one point, I was talking to the moderator of Plainville. He had a special town meeting in January, outdoors. They had to put him in a cherry picker. He would call this balmy.
Good evening. My name is Pam Dukeman. I live at 57 Sexton Ave, and I am the Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director for the town. Tonight we have a presentation to provide you some more information on the financing of this project, what will it cost, how will we pay for it, and what's the tax impact. Due to the logistics of the outdoor meeting, we have worked with Westwood Media to pre-record that presentation, and we will show that to you. The presentation does incorporate the material we've been reviewing over the past almost 2 years at all the various public hearings. I will point out that if some of the numbers for those of you in the back are not clear, the main numbers we're reviewing are really in the last 2 pages of your town meeting book. And with that, we'll show the recording, and as always, we thank you for your attendance at town meeting.
Good evening. My name is Pam Dukeman. I live at 57 Sexton Ave, and I am the Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director for the town. This presentation will review the funding sources for the new Hanlon Deerfield School proposed project. We will look at the cost of the project, how we will finance it, and what is the tax impact. The Hanlon Deerfield School project will be financed in 2 ways. First, a direct grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, and this reimbursement grant will be paid to the town monthly as the project progresses. And second, a town-issued long-term debt-exempt bond. So the total project cost, $87.8 million. The MSBA estimated reimbursement is $18.2 million, and the town estimated bond will be $69.5 million. Looking first at the MSBA. The MSBA is the state authority that was created in 2004 to reform the process of funding capital projects in Massachusetts public schools. The MSBA was created to replace a previous existing program run by the Department of Education. The MSBA's mission is, quote, to partner with Massachusetts communities to support the design and construction of educationally appropriate, flexible, sustainable, and cost-effective public school facilities. The MSBA works with the community from the beginning to the end of the school projects. They are involved in planning, designing, the educational components, etc., the full process of the school development. The MSBA has overseen the successful completion of hundreds of schools throughout the state. And as I mentioned, the MSBA pays their share of the funding on a monthly basis throughout the project term. The MSBA was created and funded with a dedicated revenue stream of 1 cent from the state's 6.2% sales tax. So all of our Westwood residents have been funding this program as they pay sales tax. And they've been funding this program that has benefited many other towns and schools. This new MSBA program is much improved. Westwood did do several school projects with the old Department of Education program. Again, that program ended in 2003 and was quite different. In that program, Westwood did the Downey School, a renovation and expansion project. That was voted by town meeting approval in 1999. We issued a 10-year bond. We completed paying for that bond in fiscal 2012. We also did a Martha Jones project, a full renovation and expansion. That was approved by town meeting in 2000. We again issued a 10-year bond for that project, and that payment ended in fiscal 2012. The new Westwood High School building, that was approved by town meeting at 2 town meetings, 2000 and 2002. We issued a 20-year bond for that project. We have 1 final payment remaining. We will complete that next year, or fiscal 2023. So again, all of these projects were completed under the old Department of Education program. Under that program, there was no assistance with design or planning or oversight of the school development. The town was required to issue a full bond, incurring additional interest costs, and then the DOE paid annual amounts towards the principal and interest over the life of the bond. So again, the new MSBA program is much improved, and the Hanlon Deerfield project is Westwood's first project with that new MSBA. Looking now at the debt that will fund the town's portion of the project. The town will issue a 30-year level debt long-term bond. The 30-year bond term is the maximum allowed for school borrowing. When we did the high school project, 20 years was the maximum at that time, but that has now been extended that we can do a 30-year bond. Doing a 30-year bond lets us capitalize and lock in on historic low interest rates of today. A 30-year bond also more fairly apportions the tax impact over today's residents as well as future town residents. When we issue a bond, the town treasurer conducts a competitive open market sale. The bond sale, we issue the total debt, and then each year the annual principal and interest on the bond is included in the annual budget. We currently have a very favorable borrowing climate. The town has a very strong credit rating. We hold a AAA rating with Standard & Poor's, a AA1 rating with Moody's. As I mentioned, it's been an excellent interest rate environment. We also look with debt to seek, whenever possible, to structure new bond sales in a way to replace old debt when that is completed and that debt is ending. A good example of that is the recent road improvement bond for all the work that's been done throughout town this summer. We will issue that long-term bond in the spring, and when those payments start, they will be replacing a previous 10-year road improvement bond that ends at that same time. The chart on this slide shows you the total debt the town has outstanding at the end of each fiscal year, with the current year, FY21, shown on the right in green. We currently have $32.6 million in outstanding debt. As you look back to the left side of the chart, you can see we've had a much higher debt level in previous years. What we do is when we issue new debt, if we have a couple of years that we're able to make payments on that, it brings our total debt outstanding down quite quickly. All of the current debt, all of that $32.6 million, was sold at a net interest rate ranging from 1.14 to 2.66%. So either through the original sale or refinancing, all of our existing debt is less than 2.6% interest rate. So again, very, very favorable interest rate environment. We did our most recent bond sale this past spring in April 2021, and we received an excellent interest rate at that time, 1.14% on the debt we sold. At the time of the sale, we first underwent a credit review. We went through an extensive process with Standard & Poor's, going through all of our financial material, all of our reserve accounts, all of our budget, reviewing all of our debt activity. At the end of the review, Standard & Poor's reaffirmed the community's AAA rating. This is an excellent rating for a small community. It really reflects well on the work done by all of our appointed and elected officials and boards, our staff, and our residents. It takes everyone to contribute to the work required to obtain this rating. A high credit rating helps the town issue debt at the lowest possible interest rate and save money for our residents. So once our credit review was done, the town treasurer did issue and sell a bond again in April 2021. The bond sold was $7.7 million bond. It had terms up to 20 years, and again, the interest rate 1.14%. That bond did include some refinancing of older bonds, particularly the library and the Thurston Modular bonds. We were able, through the refinancing, to save budget savings of $1.1 million. So for what we were expected to pay for the remaining life of those two bonds, we now have a reduced payment schedule of $1.1 million. We also in April sold a short-term one-year note of about $4.5 million. For that one-year note, the town received a 0.24% interest rate. So again, excellent time to sell debt. Our most recent debt before this spring was in August of 2016. We sold a large bond for $16.6 million. Part of that was for the new police station. That bond did include terms of up to 30 years. The police station is on a 30-year bond. And at that point we got, even for a 30-year bond, 2.4% interest rate. So again, excellent time for us to be issuing debt in this environment. Now, this Deerfield Hanlon School bond will be issued as a debt exempt bond. So what does that mean? When a borrowing is approved as a debt exemption, it means that the exact annual principal and interest payment, net of any reimbursement we might get, is raised outside the limits of Proposition 2.5. When the debt ends, the tax collection for that bond ends also. This bar graph shows you the total net debt exemptions for the town for a multi-year period, with the current year shown in green, fiscal 22. We currently have $1 million in exempt debt outstanding. You can see that if you look back again to the left on this chart, there were years where we had much higher than a $1 million balance in our debt exemptions. Going back on the far left, when we sold the Martha Jones bond and the high school bond, that exempt debt got quite high. We actually had to wait several years for the payments from that old school MSBA program to start coming. Once those payments came, our debt exemption dropped. The town has only approved 2 exempt projects over the last 20 years, and that is for the high school and the library. Those are the only debt that have been outside 2.5 or asked to be outside for a 20-year period. All of our other debt is within 2.5. The high school debt, as I mentioned, was a 20-year bond, and we have 1 payment left in fiscal 23, and then that bond will end. Just looking a little bit more at the current debt outside 2.5, this chart just shows you for the more recent years. Again, in FY22 in green, we have $1 million in exempt debt payments that we raise each year in taxes. Again, this is for the high school and library bonds only. When those bonds end, the collection ends. The high school bond will end in fiscal 23. And again, that bond was refinanced in the middle of its life for savings of $1.1 million. The library was refinanced this spring, April 21. Total budget savings for that, $759,000. And the library bond will end in fiscal 2031. Looking at the high school debt, because we've mentioned there's 1 payment left and then that will end. This chart shows the annual principal and interest payment for the high school debt. The bar graph is the whole payment, the full payment we have to make. The green portion is the town's portion of that payment, and the blue is the subsidy from the state through that old MSBA program. So when the debt ends next year, the full payment is $1.8 million. The MSBA is paying us each year a flat amount of $1.4 million. So at the time that that debt ends, there's about $406,000 that we're collecting in taxes that will be ended. So you can see by the graph that the amount that the town has paid, the green portion, has been declining steadily each year since the start of the bond. It's gone down about $100,000 a year, and in that final year will be $400,000 in total that will drop off. The chart at the bottom shows what's the tax impact of that drop off to the average home. And when that debt does end, for the average home in town, which Department of Revenue currently values at about $837,000, the drop off of that debt will represent a $60 decrease in your annual taxes. Now, looking at the new bond, the debt for the new Hanlon Deerfield project. As we mentioned, the total project will be funded with MSBA reimbursement paid on an ongoing basis, and then the town issuing a bond, estimated to be about $69.5 million. This chart shows you the cost of that $69.5 million bond over a 30-year level debt service payment. The line with the arrow in red shows the average annual cost for that bond. So in total, our annual payment for principal and interest will be $3.1 million. That's about $55 per $100,000 of home value. And again, for that average home in town, about $837,000, that would be an annual payment, shown in the red circle, of $462. Now, we cannot guarantee what the interest rate will be when we sell that bond. The actual cost will depend on the final interest rate we get. Obviously, the lower the interest rate, the lower the total cost. This chart summarizes that same cost for that bond at the 2% rate we showed, the 3%, and a 4% interest rate. So again, at a 2% rate shown in the circles, the annual cost is about $462. 3%, that would be $529, and 4%, $602. And as I mentioned, all of our current debt outstanding has an interest rate of 2.6% or less. So we are comfortable in looking towards the lower range of interest rate on this chart. Now, we've shown you what the cost is for that average home, $837,000. Every house in town has its own specific assessed home value. This chart shows you the cost of the project, the annual cost for home assessed values at varying levels, moving from $500,000 all the way up to $2.2 million. So this chart has for each home value what the current tax bill is in the current year and what would be the estimated annual tax impact. So here for a $500,000 home, that annual impact would be about $275. Showing you with the red notation on the left, half of the homes in town fall between the $600,000 and $900,000 range. So this chart lets people look at what the cost might be for their home. And you can see this chart in the back of the warrant book that you did receive for the special town meeting. And you can also find your home's particular assessed value on the town's website. Looking now at the comparison of the cost between building a new building and simply repairing the two existing schools. The cost to bring the Hanlon and Deerfield School up to code only is estimated to be about $41.7 million. The chart at the top is showing you what would be that annual cost to just issue the bond for a $41 million bond, estimating no MSBA reimbursement. So as shown on this chart, the average payment we would make, $1.8 million. The average cost per $100,000 of home value, $33. And then on the right, the cost to the $837 home, shown in the red circle, about $277 a year. So when we compare that cost of just repair only to the chart at the bottom, which is the same numbers for the new build that we've been showing you, when we show the comparison there, you can see on the far right that the new build costs $462 a year, the code only $277. So the annual incremental cost of the new building versus just coming up to code would be $185. Just quickly, one other item that's come up in discussion of this project, and it's the programs the town has available to help our seniors with their tax bills. The town has multiple senior tax programs. First, we've accepted programs within the state Chapter 59, which allows us to provide senior tax exemptions. Those include Chapter 41C, which is a $1,000 exemption for residents aged 65 and older. When the state sets up that exemption, they let communities opt into various levels on that exemption. Westwood Town Meeting has adopted the most generous state available options based on age, exemption, income, and asset level. So we've adopted the most generous allowed by law, and we've adopted exactly what our neighboring communities have, including Wellesley, Needham, and Dedham. The town also has other senior programs. That does include the tax deferral program. This program allows seniors to delay their annual tax payment until their home is sold. Our town meeting has adopted a reduced interest rate on that delay of 3%. And again, our town meeting has adopted the highest level, the most generous income level that the state allows for this program. The town also has a senior work-off program that's been in place since 2003. Under this program, up to 100 seniors are eligible to perform volunteer service for town and school departments and receive credit towards their tax bill. Again, our town meeting has adopted the maximum amount of payment allowed by the state, and that's currently $1,500 per year. And finally, the town has an Aid to the Elderly Fund. This has been in place since 1999. Our town's Aid to the Elderly program is the most generous in the state. the town distributes approximately $100,000 per year to about 50 or 55 residents. The payment they get each year provides about 25% of their total tax bill. So we have many programs available. Seniors can participate in all of the programs. They're not one-offs. You can do all of these programs. We have many seniors participating in all of these programs currently. Finally, just looking at the approval required for the Hanlon Deerfield project. It is a two-step approval. There is a 2/3 vote required at town meeting to approve the borrowing authorization, and then there is a majority vote required at a special election to approve the debt exemption. So just to look at that, again, the borrowing approval is occurring at our special town meeting on October 18th, 5 p.m. All borrowing articles at town meeting require a 2/3 approval by town meeting. Bond counsel has approved and written the language of this article. As you read the article in the town meeting warrant, the article appears to be legally dense. And it's because it is allowing the town almost into a mortgage arrangement. So just like with your mortgage documents, there's a lot of legal language. But the article accomplishes the following. It authorizes the town treasurer and select board to issue debt. It authorizes a borrowing up to amount. The article recognizes the impact and receipt of expected MSBA reimbursement. And the article also has language saying that this requires the approval as a Proposition 2.5 debt exemption. And finally, the second step of the process is the ballot question on a special election to be held on October 26th. This requires a majority approval as a ballot question. And again, the debt exemption approval allows the town to pay for the exact annual cost of principal and interest, net of any reimbursement that comes in, outside the limits of Prop 2.5. And again, when the debt ends, the taxes end. So that's the second requirement for the ballot question debt exemption approval. That does conclude our presentation. As always, thank you for your interest in our finances. Please remember the second step of this project approval is the special town election on October 26th. Thank you as always for attending our town meeting and again for your attention and care with the town's finances.
All right. A couple of things first. I'd like to thank Boy Scout Troop 3, Westwood High School students, and the Westwood Explorers for their assistance to the town clerk's office this evening. I'd like to thank the following National Honor Society members for babysitting the kids in the back. Looks like they have their hands full, but I haven't seen any tears, so they're doing a great job. That's Owen Dunton, Raymond Wang, Heba Ali, Delaney Morgan, Marie O'Shea, Abigail O'Shea, and Nina Sinnell. We have some legal requirements. So first, I'd entertain a motion to waive the reading of the warrant. Is there such a motion? Is there a second? All in favor of waiving the reading of the warrant, say aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. I'd entertain a motion to waive the reading of the article. Is there such a motion? Is there a second? All in favor of waiving the reading of the article, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Now, I apologize, but you're going to have to bear with me on this next step. We have before us this evening the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission. So I am going to read that. And it is the the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission in their motion that the town appropriate $84,610,386 to pay costs of designing, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new Paul R. Hanlon Elementary School to be located at 790 Gay Street in Westwood, Massachusetts, including costs of site work and all other costs incidental and related thereto, in paren the project. Which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children for at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, in parentheses MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of the School Building Committee. To meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount under General Laws, Chapter 44, or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The amount appropriated by this vote shall be expended in addition to the $1,750,000 appropriated to pay feasibility study costs related to the project under Article 14 of the warrant at the annual town meeting held on May 30, 2018, and the $1,460,000 appropriated to pay design costs of the project under Article 13 of the warrant at the annual town meeting held on May 3, 2021, resulting in a total cost of the project of $87,820,386. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement, discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA. And any project costs the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Provided further that any grant that town may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1, 39 3/500% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amounts set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA. No amounts shall be borrowed or expended pursuant to this vote unless the town shall have voted to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on the borrowing authorized by this vote from the limitations on taxes imposed by General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21, Cap C, in parentheses, Proposition 2.5. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. So that is the motion. This motion requires a 2/3 vote in favor at tonight's special town meeting. And then, as Pam mentioned in her recording, there's also a second part of this. The town election is a week from tomorrow. That requires a majority vote. We have apparently 4 microphones set up in the center aisle. There's a red one first, a black one behind it. There's 2 more behind the camera that I can't see. But Paul Fitzgerald and Pat Ahern have assured me that if someone's standing back there, they'll yell at me until I do recognize them and give them an opportunity to speak. When you get up to speak, wait till I recognize you. First, you want to give me your name and address. Ma'am, someone else is going to speak first. There's a 5-minute speaking limit. We ask that you avoid personalities, which means don't talk about the personal characteristics of a prior speaker or a member of town meeting. We want you to keep your remarks within the four corners of the article. We have a school building project, and that's really what you're voting on this evening. We've already had a couple of presentations. As I mentioned, there is an opposition, and that group has asked me to allow Ken Mackin to be the first speaker, and so Ken may come up. There is a 5-minute speaking rule, but I have indicated to Ken that I'm going to be very liberal with that, so that he has an opportunity to make his presentation.
Thank you, Jim O'Sullivan, and to distinguished guests and town residents. My name is Ken Mackin, and I live at 397 Foxhill Street. I've been a town resident since 1993. Like most residents, I was favorably disposed to the new school project, but I reconsidered that after seeing the size and the price tag. So I decided to investigate some of the underlying assumptions of the project. Hanlan and Deerfield currently have 383 students, and that's based on the DOE data. This evening we heard from Superintendent Emily Parks that the two schools actually have 360 students, so a further decline of 23 students. How do we get to the point of building a 560 pupil school when the demand does not exist? And I'll go through the data on that. When the school board and the Board of Selectmen received a letter from the Massachusetts School Board Authority in December of 2018, it included enrollment projections that were prepared in 2018 through 2028. The enrollment projections produced by the Massachusetts School Board Association with data provided to the school board is seriously flawed. In the same letter, the school board received in December 2018 the 10-year forecast of the K through 5 population. In the 10-year forecast in year 2020, the MBSA projected that the K through 5 population would be 1,414 students. Let me repeat that again. In 2022, the NBSA was forecasting 1,414 students, and that was a forecast only 4 years ago. We discovered when we examined the 2022 school board budget projection that the actual enrollment population that's projected for 2022 is 1,197 students. That difference is 217 students. The MBSA projected in 2018 that the next 10 years, by 2028, the K through 5 population would be 1,642 students. In 2018, the K through 5 population was 1,326. So the MBSA, with data provided by the school board, was forecasting a 24% increase in the K through 5 population. If we look in the last 10 years enrollment data through K through 5, beginning in 2011, there were 1,485 students, and today, in 2021, there are 1,238 students, or a decline of 247 students, or approximately 17% in the last 10 years. Where is the empirical data to support 1,642 students in 2008, now that we have 217 fewer students that were projected from only 4 years ago? By over-designing the school, that is likely 20 to 25% larger than needed, the town is spending an extra $15 million for school than is needed. Let me walk you through those numbers and use it not on Ms. Plotkin's numbers, which is on a per square foot basis, but let's look at it on a per pupil basis. The school board has conveyed tonight that the cost for the school for Westwood share is $69,500,000. And if we use the size of the school, we come up with a cost of $124,000 per pupil. So the 560 pupil class size costs $124,000 per pupil. If we look at where the projections are on what's happening, Westwood doesn't need a school larger than 440 pupils. Based on that, the town is spending an extra $15 million for a school that they're not going to need. If the school is built and there's not a 41% increase from today by 2028, the K through 5 population in 7 years will have a school that will have an extra 150 students, that will need an extra 150 students. This could result in the school generating greater costs in operations than projected. The school board's 2022 budget from February 2021 includes a graph on page 16 entitled Enrollment Trends. A few questions as it relates to K through 5. Does the K through 5 represent only Westwood students? If not, please explain the calculations that are done. What was missing from the 2022 school budget were any enrollment projections for the middle school. You had a nice graphics, you had nice enrollment projections for the high school, but no enrollment projections for the middle school that would go to 2030. So in the absence of any data from the board, I used the same approach that the Westwood School Board looked at and took a ratio of the number of middle school students to K through 5 students in the last 5 years and 10 years. And if the Westwood School Board was correct, Westwood would be looking at, in the next 8 to 9 years, a middle school that would have almost 910 students. And none of the data that we've seen in the last 4 years indicate anything remote to that. Now, I do commend the school board on their time and their effort in preparing the visuals, the many meetings they had with the residents, but I think the size of the project is much larger than is needed and will likely result on an undue burden that the town will have to deal with in coming years. Thank you for your time.
All right, now we're ready to open up. I do want to point out that there is a roving microphone. If someone has ability ambulating, get word up to us. I know John Cummings had it at first, and there was a woman over here in a wheelchair that wanted to speak. But when you come up, there's a 5-minute limit. You're allowed to speak up to 2 times. State your name and your address.
Me? My name is Marlis Schwartz. I live at 32 Westwood Glen Road. I think everyone here has already made up their minds. I don't think we're going to change it. I move the question.
And we're not gonna move the question at this point. A little early. Next. Okay, we've got one minute at the green microphone.
Thank you. My name is Connie Rizzoli. I live at 120 Arcadia Road, Westwood. I moved to Westwood about 44 years ago, and I had two reasons: the quality of schools and the value of the property. Of course, the two are related. But back then, it was the schools that I was really interested in. But now, as a senior citizen, I recognize the importance of home values. They are connected. Homes are valuable in Westwood because of the quality of our education.
Please withhold the applause and the booing. Thank you.
I didn't hear the booing. My kids got fantastic educations, and admittance to the colleges of their choice were no problem. Times have changed. The needs of our schools have changed. Our school system is outstanding because it isn't static. For over 30 years, my career was working for the Massachusetts House of Representatives, specializing in education law. Several of those years, I was the research director for the House Committee on Education. In the years since I've lived here, education has changed. Technology has changed. Approaches to education have changed. In the same way that schools have given up the blackboard for the whiteboard, school building design has become more sophisticated, more adaptable to diverse student bodies. In particular, I am impressed with the building design that makes this proposal able to accommodate a diverse array of disabilities, designed to help hearing impaired, vision impaired, and students with a wide range of other disabilities. The design will also help students who may have temporary disabilities. Think broken leg. These built-in accommodations will also save the town money over time, as it will allow the town to send fewer students out of district. While a state-of-the-art school will be ideal for our students for years to come, a lasting side effect will be continued strong reputation of the Westwood Public Schools, a reputation that will continue to enhance the reputation of our town and the value of our real estate. And I do intend to vote in favor of this proposal. Thank you.
All right, I see someone in the back at the yellow microphone.
Leslie Warner Maloney, 91 Hemlock Drive. I moved to Westwood 26 years ago because of the schools. My 3 children attended and graduated from the Westwood Public Schools. As a community member, I strongly support this project. Above all else, our children deserve to learn in a safe space appropriate for learning. This will also be a significant benefits for the whole community. There's going to be a large gymnasium, playing fields, a flexible performance space for the entire community, a playground for all children. There'll also be a new trailhead, continued access to Lowell Woods for everyone in the community to enjoy. Right now, we have an incredible opportunity to invest in the future of our schools, keep property values high, and create a much-needed community space for all. I ask you to join in supporting the school project and voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to the woman in the red. I believe there's a second gentleman at the yellow microphone. Mr. Riddick, you're going to get in line behind this woman. You'll be third.
My name is Karen Dolman. I live at 29 Briarwood Drive. I am the proud mother of a 5-year-old son with severe disabilities. I am speaking today in support of the new elementary school building. Back in the 1950s, when our elementary schools were built, a child like my son Henry likely would not have even been allowed to attend a public school. Thankfully, special education laws have changed drastically over the past several decades, but we still have the old school infrastructure that was never intended to accommodate students with disabilities. We need this new school building in order to provide a safe, accessible, and inclusive education for our children in Westwood. One of the big challenges in the current elementary schools, especially for special education programs, is the lack of space. This new elementary school will provide additional space that will be used to meet the unique needs of all students and provide much more flexibility as the needs of the student population change in the decades ahead. The new school will provide nurse facilities that medically complex children like my son need in order to provide better care and to protect their safety and privacy. And this extra space for medical care will be beneficial for all students and make it easier to prevent the transmission of illnesses in our school. The new parking design will make school drop-off and pick-off much easier and safer for all students, and will provide a designated parking area for those who need extra time or more space for this transition. We do not have an accessible playground in the town of Westwood, but this new school would include a playground that can accommodate every child and would provide a safe place for them to play with other children in our community. The athletic fields, gymnasium, and performance space will be for the entire community, and accessible features will make it possible for any person with disabilities, both children and adults, to be able to participate in community events. The Westwood School Administration, teachers, and other staff believe in inclusive special education, and they work so hard every day to implement this important philosophy in our schools. It is the outdated infrastructure that remains one of the biggest hurdles to providing a more inclusive education for all students in our town with special needs. Today, we have an incredible opportunity to change that. Please vote yes to the new school building so that all children in our town have the opportunity to have a safe, accessible, and inclusive place to learn and play in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the yellow mic. And before you start, sir, I can't see John Cummings. John, you have the roving microphone? Speak up if you have someone who is prepared to speak. I'll recognize that person next. Hearing nothing. Sir, go right ahead at the yellow microphone.
Thank you. My name is Phil Dunkelbarger, Sunrise Road. I'm rising to speak in support of the motion. The hope that we vote in the affirmative. But I also want to raise two issues. One is the idea that investments in schools, and particularly in school buildings, automatically leads to higher property values is not always the case. My daughter, one of my daughters who went to Thurston, graduated next door here, went on to numerous degrees, and is now thinking of coming back to Massachusetts, went through an extensive spreadsheet analysis with her husband of all of the different issues, quality of education, tax rate, and other elements of quality of life. And Westwood didn't survive the cut because of the tax rate. So we have to start thinking in terms of also controlling the tax rate, as well as providing quality education as a draw to have people come and want to buy homes in Westwood. So I think it's important that the elected officials in this community begin to understand that there is a significant cohort of people in this community that would hope that now that this vote is going to be successful and this new school will be built, that town leadership start to direct more attention at tax relief and the improvement of town services. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Adick?
Good evening. My name is Peter Ittig of Bay Colony Drive. I'm also a member of the Westwood Finance Commission. You received a report from the Finance Commission, you received a report from the Finance Commission that purports to be the comments and recommendations of the Finance Commission on this proposal. A detail is that the comments in that report were not reviewed or approved by the Finance Commission prior to publication. Rather, they were the responsibility of the chairperson and exclude the views of the minority. I was particularly disappointed that the report does not show the cost comparisons that were provided to the commission by the school committee for similar projects in other towns. You also received a flyer from the school administration and a presentation this evening that does show cost comparisons, but it only shows comparisons of the cost per square foot, which flatters this large project and incorrectly suggests that the cost is low. Comparisons of total cost and of cost per student are not at all favorable and are not shown. You may see my full minority report, including that comparison table, on the Westwood Minute news site, and I suggest that you look at those cost comparisons before voting at the override election next week. Ultimately, 2 members of the commission voted no on the override, and 3 members didn't vote at all. I will try to summarize my concerns. First, we do not need a new school at this time for rising numbers of students. The proposed override, the largest ever in Westwood, is a replacement project for older schools that need repairs. The Deerfield school would be closed afterward. Just last week, the U.S. News and World Report listed the Deerfield school as among the best elementary schools in Massachusetts. Clearly, the age of the school matters less than what happens inside between the teachers and the students. Yet we are proposing to close the Deerfield school. Many parents actually prefer small neighborhood schools, such as Deerfield, rather than a large consolidated school as proposed today as a replacement. An important concern is that this project is very expensive. It is much more expensive than the high school and more expensive than all of the comparison school projects presented to the commission, including those designed for larger numbers of students. The project is about $10 million more expensive than the comparison school in Medfield, which is designed for a larger number of students, and about $12 million more expensive than the comparison project in Wellesley. State reimbursement is low compared with the high school. The property tax increase will last for 30 years and will not be offset by federal deductions for most of us. This will be in addition to the 3% tax increase that was approved at the town meeting in May. Also, I am uncomfortable with the planned obsolescence of the school designs. We were told that new schools are designed to have a useful life of 40 to 50 years. Since we have several schools in Westwood, this means we can expect to be continually replacing schools on a perpetual rotating cycle. This also means a replacement with an override and a tax increase
Got about 1 minute
every few
remaining.
years. Excuse me?
You got about 1 minute to go.
For example, we will soon be asked to approve another override to rebuild the Sheehan School for another $60 million or so. That's 60 million. In my experience as a professor, colleges and universities generally do not do this rotating replacement of buildings. College lecture halls are generally not torn down when they need a new furnace or roof repair or plumbing repairs. This is also true for homes in Westwood. Homeowners generally do not tear down the house when they need a new furnace or a new roof or new windows.
At about
I
20
believe
seconds.
that
Dr.
our schools should be built to last, and the only good reason to build a new school should be for necessary additional capacity. That is not the issue here, and in fact, we will be left with a surplus school at Deerfield after this project is complete.
Dr. Iddig, your
I am
5 minutes
also
is up.
concerned about the
I'm going to
impact.
have to ask you to wrap this up. I'll give you 10 more seconds.
I'm concerned about the impact of a large tax increase on our seniors who are uniquely vulnerable to tax increases. Large overrides have sometimes been accompanied by a concession of some sort for
All right,
seniors.
thank you very much. Mr. Obie in the back, it's your turn.
I voted no, and I recommend voters vote no.
Doug Obie, 435 High Street, Westwood. I've been a financial advisor and investor in real estate for the past 35 to 40 years. I even wrote and published a book on the topic in 2015. I mention this only to let you know I know what I'm talking about when I tell you that higher taxes are detrimental to home values and prices. There's a myth in town that I'd like to dispel, that we have to vote for tax increases when it comes to schools because it's the schools that people move to Westwood for and what keeps our home prices high. That's simply not true. Interest rates dropping lower and lower are what have been driving prices higher. If you think about it, you'll agree that no one buys a house based on price. They buy a house based on monthly payments that they can or want to afford. Then they subtract the real estate taxes assessed on that house, and what's left is what they can afford for principal and interest, which makes up their total payment. That then determines the price of the house they can afford. We are being asked to vote for one of the biggest tax increases we've ever had, costing the homeowner, the average homeowner, approximately $500 more per year in real estate taxes for 30 years, and double that for above average homes. $500 per year is only $42 per month, but that $42 pays the principal and interest on $10,000. So for every $500 a year more in taxes, a home's price would have to drop $10,000 for a buyer to keep their payments the same. The higher the real estate taxes are, the less there is for principal and interest, which determines the value of your home. By voting for higher taxes, you are actually voting to depress the value of your homes. The other myth I'd like to dispel is that new facilities are essential for good education. The Sheehan School was old 30 years ago, but kids still got and are still getting an excellent education in that building. Back before we built the new high school, Westwood was consistently in the top 10 rated high schools in the state. Last I checked, and you can Google this, we are no longer in the top 10, not even in the top 20. I mention this to point out that it's not the facility that teaches our kids, but good teachers. And we will always attract good teachers, even if they have to teach in tents. My sister is a Brockton Middle School math teacher, and she'd happily be willing to take a pay cut to teach in Westwood. We don't need this new school to maintain the excellent educations our kids have always received in Westwood. And we don't need to vote for this override to maintain the value of our homes. I encourage you to vote to maintain the value of your homes and vote no on this override. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll go to this woman in the front, and then there's a gentleman right behind her. He'll be next.
Sorry, I don't have a prepared speech. Sudha Sarma, 9 Phillips Brooks Road. Listening tonight, I wanted to say that I did move to Westwood for the schools. I've lived in different parts of the country. And in my view, in Massachusetts, we get an outstanding education no matter what school district. And we are in the top 20 still in Westwood. And in Massachusetts, you either have to pay up for your house or you pay for school. We wanted to invest in this community. Our family has benefited from being in Westwood from people who came before and invested in that high school. My kids don't go to Deerfield, Hanlon, or Sheehan, but I want to invest in your kids because somebody paid it forward for me. And so I think there's value in that,
Please
being a
hold
good
the applause. Please hold the applause.
community steward. And my kids did go to Downey and the high school, 2 blue ribbon schools. And I, again, want to, I have gone to all the community forums. So if you haven't, please educate yourself about what happened in those forums. This school committee, the FinCom, have been transparent for years about this project. Years. Sat in those community forums, educated myself about the quality, the type of schools, and the education that is given to our kids now. That differs from how I was raised in the 70s as a child in the Midwest, and it surely differs how they're educating your children now, but that's good, right? We're in a different world. So I value what the commentator before said about her child who needs certain services. So what I hear with this project, and I feel compelled to vote for, is that there's a new way of learning and a new way of teaching so that every kid of every ability can learn in a safe and productive environment. I hear open floor plans, I hear accessible playgrounds, I hear accessible community space, I hear inclusive learning, and I hear a community space that will allow all our members, right, of this community to participate. I hear playing fields, more basketball space, and more soccer fields. So if you don't feel compelled to invest in that, well, I do, and I compel you to vote yes for this at this time.
Thank you. Next, the gentleman at the second microphone.
Hi, yes, hello? Yes, I'm David Warsh. I live at 18 Colby Way. And I wanted to just stress a hard reality point here. I've been a resident of 26 years in Westwood, that the excellence in town operations and government there has really made a difference. My home value has quadrupled now in 26 years in Chase Estates on that. And everyone, has issues on, the values of, education, et cetera, out there. But the beauty of the Westwood school system is that my daughter's able to go K through 12 and into Harvard and do really well there. And my son doing pretty well at UMass Amherst Eisenberg on that. And that's the value that you're getting. So even though my kids are out of the school system, I think it's very important to support the, the operations of the town and make sure we have the best facilities available. Because if you looked at the homes compared to like Norwood, our home's worth a few $100,000 more for the same house. I think that says it all right there. So I'm planning to absorb this one. It's worth it. If I'm paying 16 grand right now in property tax, another 500. I'm just going to have to suck this up for excellence in town, schools. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that, sir. And the second mic, right in front of the camera. You were supposed to go. I'll let you go now.
Good evening. My name's Alan McDonald. I live on Clabbertree Street. I'm a former member of the Finance Committee and the School Committee, and I speak in support of this new school, which is something that should have been done 20 years ago when I was on the school committee. First of all, though, I would like to compliment the current school committee at the wonderful job they have done at presenting this over the years so we all know what is needed and what was looked at and what is being presented. The Westwood schools have done a good job over the years educating our students, not because of the schools, we all know that, but because of the quality of the teachers and the administrators who hire the teachers and the school committees who support the administrators and the teachers. And that is continuing, and I hope we continue showing that support to the system by voting in favor of this school tonight. One other thing, I just turned 70, which makes me a senior citizen, and I am glad to hear people speaking out in favor of helping senior citizens. I'd much rather they help me by showing up to shovel my driveway in a snowstorm than cutting back on the property taxes for my house a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got someone in the back, and yellow microphone, and then next will be the gentleman standing by the red microphone.
Good evening. My name is David Lefcourt, and I live on Clapboard Street in Westwood. I'm the father of 2 school-aged daughters, a husband...
I'm sorry, sir. What number? Cafeteria Street?
530.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm the father of 2 school-aged daughters, a husband, a United States Marine Corps veteran, and a patriot. Our public education system is critical in developing the next generation of Americans and shaping them into accepting, loving, and kind people. The Westwood School Committee, administration, and staff have and continue to do an amazing job helping my children develop. Thank you. Finally, thank you for all your effort and due diligence into planning the future Deerfield Hanlon Combined Elementary School. What a wonderful resource for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And sir at the front.
Thank you. I first want to thank the gentleman that just spoke for his service to the military. Thank you. My name is George Laham. I've lived in Westwood at 17 Aaron Road for 36 years, and I moved to Westwood because my parents put me in a car and said, we want better schools, and that's why I stayed in Westwood, and I'm raising my 3 children here. A lot of people have spoken tonight on theories and concepts. I'd like to speak very plainly on the numbers. The new school is at $87.8 million. We've all heard that. But it's not just for a school, it's for athletic facilities across the town because that's what the town asked the school committee to do. So through different info sessions, it came up to that number of $87.8 million. Then they brought the state in. The state said, you've done a great job. You've maintained the schools, which is a criteria to get this grant from an acronym that I'm not going to remember. So you're going to get this $18.2 million. Now, validate and confirm, a lot of political comments are made. We never know it's true. But this $18.2 million is a one-time thing. Now, how do we know that's true? We researched. The town of Lincoln applied for the same thing we're doing. They wanted a new school, and it initially was at $23 million. They voted it down once, twice, 3 times, 4 times it was voted down. Finally, they voted it through. They lost the state funding, and it cost $93 million. So we have a $70 million gap there. I mean, that's a lot of money leaving on the table. We're at $69.5 million to vote in is the real number of this new school for state-of-the-art. Now, if we vote it down, we're still on the hook for a tax increase, because we have a $41 or basically $42 million bill to bring the town to code. So I think the real question, and I'm not judging on any presentation, but the real question is, do you want to spend $28 million more to get a state-of-the-art school? Now, for the average home in Westwood, It's $185 a year. That's the delta on it. And, you know, as I see it, nobody moved to Westwood because they just accomplished the bare minimum in their life. Nobody lives in this town for the bare minimum. $42 million is doing it just for the bare minimum. Now, whether you're a grandparent living in the town and you have grandkids, you won't want the bare minimum for them. If you have a town, you don't have any kids in the town, you don't want the bare minimum return on investment. You don't go to Fidelity and say, hey, get me the bare minimum return on my investment. I'll be okay with that. And for me personally, I don't want the bare minimum for my children. I'm supporting this project, and I'm supporting the town as I have for the past 36 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw Ms. Hyde at the Westwood Green microphone. And then after her, we're going to have an alum of Westwood High School, Mr. Campion, and then Mrs. McLaughlin.
Oh, so I can't move the question? Just kidding. Good evening. I'm Nancy Hyde, 15 Martingale Lane, and a 34-year resident of the town of Westwood. And I want to thank the town moderator and Madam Clerk and all the people who allowed us to have this meeting tonight. You did an excellent job. I've been closely involved in Westwood's town government for the past 25 years, first on the Finance Commission, then the Planning Board, and most recently I served 18 years on the Select Board. During my 5 years on the Finance Commission from 1995 to 2000, town voters approved the renovation and remodeling of the Downey School, the renovation and remodeling of the Martha Jones School, the new construction of the high school, and renovation of the swimming pool and gym. Along the way, we added modular classrooms to the Thurston, the Hanlon, and the Deerfield schools. With all of these projects, we had an eye towards addressing growing student populations and aging buildings. Here we are again, 21 years since we approved the new high school to address a very important need regarding two of our elementary schools. I would like to offer my perspective on why the proposal before us this evening is the right project at the right time. For 2 years, I represented the Select Board on the School Building Committee for this project, and I was involved in several meetings with the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority. I have firsthand knowledge of the work that has been done over the past 4 years, from community buildings to school building committee meetings to working subcommittee meetings of the School Building Committee, to meetings with the Finance Commission and the Select Board, all with the assistance of two outstanding consulting firms, Compass Project Management and Dorr & Whittier Architects. The methodical and thorough process required by the state when pursuing school building projects is lengthy and precise. In order to determine the design of the school building which achieves our community's goals for educating today's children and future generations of children. We have also set standards for sustainable design, recreation and sports usage, performing arts when designing this proposed building. And every step along the way, the community was part of the process. Consideration has been given to building the right sized school. We don't want to repeat the past when we added modulars on the front side of Thurston, but didn't add enough to address projected growth. We built a second gym on Thurston, but didn't build it large enough to address the types of usage it would eventually have. We cannot accomplish what we need by renovating these two small schools that, although they've been maintained, they are very old. They do not meet the educational needs of all students. Their operating systems are past their expiration dates and will require extensive capital investments. And these buildings are not built to today's building codes, and they also need to give consideration to ADA compliance. Hanlon and Deerfield have served the community for about 70 years, and we have gotten the most and best out of these buildings. We cannot and should not wait any longer, as doing so would cause forfeiting financial support from the state and experiencing further escalation in building costs. Time is not our friend. We are all stewards of this town while we live here. Some of us are here for a short time and some for much longer. We have been and continue to be a town where our schools are a central feature of why people choose to live here. We should not punt our responsibilities down the road. We have so many things going for us right now. We have the right process, state financial support, and partnership in planning and building process, a favorable interest rate environment, and a AAA bond rating. Please join me in voting yes for this article before us tonight, because it is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Greg Campion is next, then Paula McLaughlin. Mr. Mullen?
Can I make a motion to remove the question?
We got a motion to move the question.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion to move the question requires a majority vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor of moving the question. So now we got to go back to your handy voting devices. If you're in favor of the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission, you're going to press the green button for yes. If you're against it, you're going to push the red button. You have 30 seconds to vote. I am going to point out that these devices don't work outside the football area, and they explode once you get out to the Hatton Street. You'll have green paint all over your windshield. Voting is open. Looks like we've got 852 have voted already. Before we announce the vote, we have to double check the number of people who have registered for town meeting.
vote is not official until I announce it. We're not prepared for that. Please remain in your seats. All right.
That would show, whatever results.
Okay, I guess I need to close the vote. I'll do that right now. It's not official until I announce it. We need to hear back from Clerk Powers. Please do not leave. Please do not leave. Okay, can you give me those numbers?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry for the delay. We didn't realize that there were that many people had registered. The last count we had was 862, but these appear to be the correct numbers. 873 in favor, 153 opposed. It is a 2/3 vote in favor.
It matches up with the check-ins.
Okay. Is there a motion to dissolve the town meeting? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. This town meeting is dissolved. Don't forget to leave your voting devices, and don't forget to vote on October 26th. Thank you, everyone.